President Obama is proposing a $3.8 trillion budget for the fiscal year 2011 and projects the deficit is going to hit a record $1.6 trillion. Julianna Goldman is at the White House right now with Budget Director Peter Orszag on what more we can expect from the president's plan. Julianna?
Eric, thank you. And Peter, thanks for the time today.
Good to be here.
The budget forecasts for the end of the president's first term a 4.4% deficit as it relates to GDP. That's not the 3% that you and the president had talked about last year. What happened? You've said that that's not sustainable. How do you plan to fix that?
Well, what happened is that the projections that were made at the beginning of last year didn't reflect how deep the economic downturn was. Remember, at the end of 2008, real GDP was falling by more than 5%. So the economic conditions were much worse than was reflected in the projections at the beginning of last year. What we're saying now is we need to bring the deficit down over time, but to get to that 3% target will require a bipartisan effort. And that's why we're setting up a fiscal commission to get the rest of the way there, in addition to the more than $1 trillion in deficit reduction that we have embodied in our budget.
Well, the budget also sets aside about $100 billion for stimulus. Is this a second stimulus? Why not go higher? The House bill, about $154 billion?
Well, I don't think those are apples-to-apples comparisons, but let me clarify here. The purpose of the Recovery Act was to get the economy back on its feet. Again, we've gone from minus 5% decline at the end of 2008 to plus more than 5% at the end of 2009. Substantial progress. But the employment market remains too weak. We want to focus this effort on job creation, that is accelerating the lag that typically happens between when the economy picks up and when employment picks up. We want to try to shorten that, including through, for example, the new jobs and wages tax credit for small businesses.
So are you calling this $100 billion a second stimulus?
No, it's really focused on promoting job creation and, again, accelerating that lag that typically happens. The economy picks up, employment lags behind. We want to try to shorten that.
Well, you mentioned the bipartisan Fiscal Commission. What if Republicans aren't on board? What's the latest on that front?
Well, again, let's hope they will be, because we think this is in the nation's best interest. We want to hear lots of different ideas. Republicans have put forward some ideas. Representative Ryan, for example, the ranking member on the House Budget Committee, has a plan for the future of the budget. That's great. Let's put that into the commission process, too, for example.
Well, how realistic is this budget? You talk about that $1.2 trillion over 10 years, the TARP tax, the freeze on non-defense discretionary spending, but that's run into resistance from lawmakers on both sides.
Well, let's talk about the non-security discretionary freeze. The president, during the State of the Union, made it clear how much he believes that needs to happen, and even said that he will enforce it with a veto if necessary. So, sure, is this easy? No. Is it important to do? Yes, and the administration is going to fight hard for it.
Peter Orszag, thanks very much on this very busy Budget Monday. Back to you, Eric.